Series qualifying continuing. Daytona International Speedway, just coming off the track, is Brendan Gaughan in the 75. He's another driver that will race later this evening in the Xfinity Series. He qualified 9th for the Xfinity Series race, currently 6th in this first round of qualifying for Monster Energy Series. Ryan Newman on the clock now in the 31. Both drivers representing RCR, Richard Childress Racing. Ryan Newman has been able to hoist the Daytona 500 trophy above his head, as now he is 4th quickest in this first round of qualifying at 47.756. And young Eric Jones following right behind Ryan Newman for his single lap of qualifying.
Eric has had really, in my opinion, a decent rookie season. In all accounts, it seems to be a little maybe overshadowed by some of the first-time winners, Ryan Blaney and Stenhouse Jr. and those, but those haven't been rookies. You know, as far as the rookies go, Eric Jones has been running very well, hasn't made, in my opinion, any huge rookie mistakes. We haven't seen him in the news for the wrong reasons, but probably looking for a little bit more out of the 77 car comparing to how fast his teammate is of Martin Truex Jr.
I was going to say, that's, I think, what people will look at more is how do you run compared to someone who is in a car very similar to yours, which is Martin Truex Jr., and Martin Truex Jr. has been phenomenal.
Well, he has been, but, you know, I think it'd be unrealistic to say Eric Jones should be performing at that level. I mean, Eric Jones is a young guy, just turned 21 years old, and, you know, he really doesn't have much big car experience. So, like Steve said, I mean, I think he's had a very, very solid first part of the year. And I think one thing that's hurt them, and not put pressure on a young team, but their pit stops haven't been as good as their teammates. And when they get track position, they seem like they lose track position, and then it's hard to get that back.
Well, the first thing he needs to do here tomorrow night is run all the laps. He's had a DNF in both speedway races this year. And talk about DNFs.
Yeah,
this guy right here, the 5 of Casey Kane last week, he had a huge hit at Sonoma.
He predicted this, though. He's in the green.
See how you know, it's funny, really, with very little practice of qualifying trim, there was something he knew about this car that he had a little confidence that they were going to run faster than, at that point, Jamie McMurray's 50. Now it's Patrick's 44, and they're trending down somewhere into the 30s.
Yeah, with only one top 10 in the last 14 races, Casey Kane needs some confidence. He needs something good to happen for him. And we keep saying this for Casey Kane and this team, like, year after year, they need some positive energy. They need something happening that is good. And, you know, as we've said many times, it can happen here. Daytona, Talladega are opportunities. So, good start to the weekend.
He knew this car had speed, and I mentioned last week at Sonoma, kind of an odd place to crash without a failure, but you see right here on the outside of another car, makes contact, and an absolute huge hit into that, I guess you could call it temporary concrete barrier right there. You see just how much that barrier moves. No safer barrier there. Just, I mean, a really, really big impact for that 5 car.
Those things are 3,000 pounds each. They're concrete. And so for a car to make that kind of impact on those Jersey barriers, the wall that he ran into, a lot of people were looking, saying, wow, you know, that's pretty amazing, the momentum that he was carrying into that area. And a lot of people also were saying, well, why wasn't there something different done to that space? Well, nobody knows where someone's going to hit the wall. And it, like you mentioned, uncharacteristic to be in that position.
And they do run multiple different events at Sonoma, so it's something they're just going to have to look at. As we see now, Casey Kane's teammate Jimmy Johnson on track. He seems to be a little off his teammate right now, trending in the red. Jimmy, the 7-time champ out of Hendrick Motorsports, has to be really the highlight of their year. With 3 wins so far, the only driver to get into victory lane from the Hendrick camp.
It has 3 wins here at Daytona.
Coming up next is teammate Chase Elliott. We talked about Kyle Larson a little bit ago having a chance to win a Daytona 500. Well, Chase Elliott was in a similar position. He had speed, was in a really good chance to win the race, and much like Kyle Larson, late in the race, just ran out of gas and could not finish the deal off. So Chase Elliott with a disappointing finish, but he and Kyle Larson both, even though they're both young, they had themselves in position to win the Daytona 500.
And I think that's the key. The key is what they learned. While the finish might not be impressive, Chase led 39 laps. You know, he ended up finishing 14th, but those 39 laps at the front, Rick, controlling the pack, deciding what lane to block, what lane to pull, made a big difference. And I'm not sure this is any surprise. When you look at the 24 stats, they are so dominant when it comes to this single lap super speedway type qualifying. He's trending well, and I mean, you're talking a tenth and a half.
Unbelievably faster.
That is a huge lap for the 24.
This 24 car knows Alan, crew chief, he knows how to build fast race cars, and you see it at Daytona and Talladega. This car is set on a lot of poles, 2 poles and 3 starts here with Chase Elliott. So
Jimmy Johnson also now drops to 5th after his qualifying lap. It was just before Chase Elliott. Want to make sure to give that.
As we already start to see, that cut line start to be established now. So Jimmy Johnson in 5th. It's going to be interesting to see if he makes that second round. Will he end up in the top 12? But, not just 5th, but, man, 3.5 tenths off from his teammate. So that's going to be a big gap. I would assume that would start to fill in with other cars.
That 47-18, that'll be, I don't know that somebody can beat that. As Steve said before, it's hard to know based on the way practice happened here, but it's hard to imagine somebody running quicker than that.
You always have to look to, especially here at this racetrack and at Talladega, the Fords have always had very strong cars in qualifying as well. So you have to continue to keep your eye on the guys who are going to be going late in this session. Drivers like Stenhouse Jr., Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, all going very late in this session.
Hey, Rick, we're going to talk to drivers after qualifying, and we're going to hear a lot of stories about how handling is going to be an issue tomorrow night. And, nothing in the world is free, and that includes gripping a race car. So this type of race car you would set up in February where there's all kinds of opportunities to work on your car, all kinds of opportunity over the course of the week to change it. You can build a car specifically to sit on the pole for the Daytona 500. These cars here, after qualifying, the next time they're on the racetrack is the race. So these cars are going to have certain things built in to help them drive, whether it's a little more downforce, whether it's suspension settings that add grip when you're out there in a pack. All of those things cost you speed when you're by yourself. It's going to be interesting to see how many drivers aren't too disappointed with their qualifying effort, actually looked at as a positive and might actually drive better when it gets in the race.
We talked about, when we came in, we talked about the importance of qualifying and track position. Well, the first stage ends on that 40.
Oh, yeah.
So if you qualify, think about, we just saw Martin Truex Jr. He's now 10th. That guy has been dominating stages. Well, he's going to have to come from mid-pack to get there in tomorrow night's race.
And it's not easy to move up at Daytona in the pack. Matt Kenseth, 6th quickest in his qualifying run.